my friends, and welcome back to Alien Protocols. This is a video I hesitated creating because I've done quite a bit of research in this kind of area of ufology, and I was under the misguided notion that it would be a negative thing to publicize this theory, let's call it. And about a month and a half ago, I guess, I had this really cool experience. I'm still processing all the ramifications of it and thoughts behind it and everything. And that was that lucid dream, quote, lucid dream I had. And up until that point, I had a lot of worry about possibly talking about or maybe even accidentally divulging any information that could be used negatively. Since after that event, I'm less concerned with that for a few reasons. But anyway, this was actually and still is a really interesting and a very usable theory, and it's not something that is brand new. You can be certain that many others have thought about this, and many different groups in the governments of the world who have embraced the reality that we're being visited. One of the things they'd want to do at some point is try and deduce possible routes. You could deduce these routes based on remoteness, based on extremes of conditions that would make it much more difficult for human technology to follow. And you can base these routes on destinations and objects and things that we know these craft are interested in. Of course, we know nuclear seems to be something that they're very interested in, and we also are pretty darn certain that they're very interested in nature and animals and complex biosystems. And so with that in mind, you could plot out a lot of interesting things. Pathways from even outside of our, from our, let's say, our local solar system areas into the Earth from different paths, and you could determine which would be the most difficult ones for us to track. And I'm not going to, give away any obvious hints as to all of these details, and I actually have a separate map with a lot of presumptions and routes and even some really cool things you could do if you had a little bit of funding. But anyway, for a while I've been talking about a very interesting feature. Let me get a nice wacky pen for this one. I'll do it in orange. And this feature is called the Puerto Rican Trench. And I've been talking about the Puerto Rican Trench for a long time, more than I've heard any, I've never heard anyone talking about it in terms of ufology, up until only maybe just a few months ago, when I believe Luis Elizondo said something associated with the Puerto Rican Trench. But I'm sure one of the listeners of this channel will know where I remember more than I do, who said something about the Puerto Rican Trench. Anyway, something very interesting to notice. Here's the Puerto Rican Trench, let's say. It's one of the deepest ocean floor valleys. And of course, a deep ocean floor valley is a great kind of pathway or route for craft to take who are wanting to avoid U.S. and other countries' vehicles, submarines, and more. And of course, if you look, I just want to point out some interesting features. So the Puerto Rican Trench actually does something like this. Okay, I think there's a string of these islands here, Virgin Islands, etc. I think there's actually a little mini one over here too. And this trench, although it's not as deep, it actually does a little bit of this. It comes out over here and does something like that, okay? Now, off the east coast of the U.S. is, of course, the shelf. There's a big shelf. And the shelf meaning that the continents are kind of like a table. They're, of course, high above the sea floor, and the transition from here to there is, the water line, of course, is right here, but here's where the real drop-off is. And this is like a steep wall that just drops very deeply, very precipitously. So if you were a craft and wanted to get, let's say, to South America, to the densest rainforest on the planet, you could, instead of coming straight down from above, which would be another good route, you could enter through, let's say, a pole, the North or South Pole, where there, of course, is a lot of electromagnetic energies flowing either downwards or upwards from the Earth, because as you remember, the Earth is kind of like a magnet, you know. Let's see, I'll draw a little thing like that. Okay, here, let's say here's the Earth, and it has these little magnetic field lines, and the magnetic field lines go all the way around the planet and come up here on the bottom. And coming in at an angle like this might be an interesting way just to have a little bit, you know, a sconcy, a little bit more protection with the place where there's a lot of energies in the atmosphere. But you can be sure none of these things are required by the craft. It just might be a little extra option that they might include to reduce their profile. But here's the few things that I found interesting. One is that the Puerto Rican Trench swoops around here and comes down here near Colares, Brazil. Do you guys remember Colares, Brazil? I bet you guys do. Very famous UFO incidents there. Very fascinating results from, I think it was General Calabra or something like that. Halabra, Colonel Halabra, maybe. They had many encounters with craft and a lot of evidence. Anyway, they oftentimes seemed to be going deeper into the country. And just another little thing I'd like to point out. Over here is Peru. Peru is another huge hotspot, huge UFO hotspot. In fact, one of the hypotheses that I've thrown out there is that it's been a hotspot for a long time. And in fact, natives in that region would see craft regularly going into the rainforest. And I believe one of the possibilities about the Nazca lines is that these native people saw these craft going in to the rainforest. And the very first Nazca line stuff was actually, I think it's called pictograms, the giant drawings of animals. And these drawings are so large and the ground is so flat in that desert region that you cannot see these giant animals from the ground. You can't. And there's not, you know, any local mountains where you can get the right perspective on it. You know, a couple of them there are, there's I think one or two that are actually on the side of a mountain. But what's interesting from my amateur geography and trying to figure out angles, the one petroglyph that was on a mountain is actually facing this direction, towards the ocean here. So we have a few different cases pointing to a location that seems to be very hot and has been for, you know, over 50 years. So perhaps the Nazca lines were created, and the pictograms, earthgrams, whatever you call it, were made for the visitors, the watchers, the travelers, whatever you'd like to call them. And the U.S. has had a lot of encounters with craft out here. There's a naval area, I think it's like right around here, something like that, and they've had a lot of traffic. And these little different types of craft will come into the atmosphere, somewhere up here, I believe, come down the just the side of the continental shelf here, and they've had many encounters with submarines. I've spoken about the submarine stuff for years, a long time, and I've spoken about a case where there were several submarines and submarine hunters and all this stuff involved in an incident over here, I guess. I have to look at my notes, but it'd probably be something like 8 to 15 years ago. And there have been even much more recently more of these encounters in this region right here. So anyway, it would seem like a logical thing for a craft to be traveling at the most the lowest profile kind of areas and ways. And now why would they be going to South America under this presumption? You know, if you watch the channel, you know that I believe the most valuable thing in the universe outside of love, wink, wink, aw, is data, information. Knowledge is power. Knowledge is more valuable than any gem, metal, or anything. So, life forms are one of the densest forms of data. They're jam-packed with data. Not just in the actual creature itself, but how it integrates into a larger biosystem. And for an advanced race, you could learn so much, so much on so many different levels from a rainforest, from a very densely packed rainforest. So I think it's really fascinating that our universe is so magnificent, so diverse, and God, the great creator, whatever you want to attribute it to, has made the universe so dynamic that even a super intelligent race could not pre-predict from a distance all the different creatures and things going on Earth. That the universe allows for such diversity and individuality that they couldn't pre-calculate everything they needed to or wanted to find out about. So there's so much in this whole idea, not only about routes, not only about classic archaeological and historical hints, but also there's a lot of very deep hints into what the heck is going on. Not just in terms of reality and our universe and the laws of our universe, but also to some things even larger than that, bizarrely enough. It hints at a bunch of different things that I might get into in the next video, I'm not sure, but it's around 3 o'clock in the morning tonight, and I've been up thinking about a lot of different things, and I wanted to, I'm sorry, I'm just kind of like slow-minded tonight, but I wanted to share this notion with you guys and see what you think. Do you think routes is something of interest? Here's another little example of how this could work. Go to another page here. Let's say you have a repeat location, and there's a lot of them. Nuclear sites, for example, Malmstrom Air Force Base, a lot of other these places that have nuclear stuff. So let's go to Malmstrom, okay? So let's say here's Malmstrom. There's a lot of different, nuclear missile sites over here. Let's say the base is like over here. There are likely some deep valleys and, mountains and different stuff that even a very sophisticated, super advanced craft might be able to take advantage of, just to reduce their profile more and give them perhaps a little bit more time to fiddle around the base. This could be, this knowledge and route planning and route tracking could be used for a bunch of good reasons. It also could be used for a bunch of very bad reasons. We know from quite a bit of research and other whistleblowers that Peru is and has been a hotspot for the U.S. military in terms of their, and the Department of Energy, in terms of their desire to get more information on these craft. And one of the things they have done is they built a kind of little line here. And it's really a bunch of these little sites where they have powerful radar and some different types of weaponry, apparently, to shoot down these craft. And that's because their route has become so obvious to them that they wanted to take advantage of it. This also leads me to believe a couple of different things. One is, you know, you say to yourself, well, why would they want to do a route when they could just go straight up and out and be gone? Well, perhaps offshore here somewhere, there's a base. And what they're doing is really ferrying data samples back, and perhaps even real physical objects and physical samples. We know from the Nimitz case, which was out here, that the Tic Tac was hovering above something frothing in the water. Perhaps a large saucer is what it looked like. Perhaps the Tic Tacs are bringing back physical samples to these saucers, these larger saucers, underwater, accumulate them for a while, and then bring them down to a base somewhere. And at this location, they keep storing it and storing it and storing it until they have enough, and they store other data from other places. And once they have enough, that sample will then go off planet. So hopefully you are able to tolerate my babble and my slow speak tonight. But some of these insights and observations, I have a couple other levels to it. But I would like to keep the option open of pursuing them with a friend or associates in the future, rather than just giving them away to everyone yet, because I don't know, although I do not fear for the watchers and the others, whatever you'd like to call them, I do fear for us as a race and humans in general. So anyway, what do you guys think? Much love.